Something that you ask about a lot is why I don't have a false bottom in my bioactive setup. That's right there for my ball python. I did a build video for that along with a couple updates, but I want to talk about some of the stuff that I've done to avoid making an actual false bottom or drainage layer. Keep in mind, I'm not at all a pro at these vivariums or bioactive setups. I'm holding a plant just so I look more reliable, but I think I do have some ideas that I can bring to you that might help you along your way if you want to avoid making a false bottom in your enclosure. Not avoidable for all, but it possibly is for some. So firstly, there are substrates that you can basically just make and buy that kind of work as a false bottom without actually making it. The goal with these is to have lots of different air pockets and airways in the actual substrate so that the water does not get too wet. The point of a false bottom is to make sure your plants do not drown in the water. So when you water it, there's not a buildup of water, it has somewhere to drain, and your plants can still get oxygen. Basically, it's just not a muddy mess when you're spraying it, because if you look outside, whenever it rains, it's just going to drain away into however deep the soil goes. But in an enclosure, that might only be a few inches of space so it can build up, and then you want to be able to drain it out. But using a soil like this might be a good way to avoid doing this because there's essentially more space in it, or more air pockets, like I said, to almost do this without that whole separate layer. And then if you don't know the false bottom, it's usually something like gravel or clay or some sort of thing that has lots of airways that's laid down, and then there's something over that like a screen or something, and then there's the actual substrate that your plants are in. Secondly, you can think about the actual plants that you're selecting. Depending on what it is, it might be fine without a drainage layer just because that's how the plant is. This is an air plant, they don't even get put in the soil, you can just place them around the enclosure. You water them, you can either spray them or water them outside the enclosure, like people that just keep these on their desk or whatever. You can just soak it in water or just give it a misting every so often. So this would not need one at all. There's also some plants like pothos, for example. You really can't drown pothos. It can be completely aquatic, so that's not a big concern with it. Of course, depending on the animal in the enclosure, you still might not want a ton of moisture and water beneath the soil, but the plants can make some variation depending on just how delicate they are, just how much they can withstand, how much water they can take, and etc. But now we can talk about more what I actually did in my vivarium back there in that 40 gallon. Now, I don't actually not have any drainage. One of the things I did do is I tried to make a soil that has a bit more airway than usual. I added lots of sphagnum moss in it, which kind of helps to separate it all. But something else that I did is each plant essentially has its own little bit of drainage. When we start in the background, you might have seen that video where I was literally like siliconing or foaming the cups, little plastic cups from like the party store in the back of the vivarium. And then I drilled holes through it all the way down so that there's airways from the top of the cup all the way down through and basically just down to the soil. So now when I water the plants that are in those cups back there, the water can just drain through that and then eventually drain into the soil. So again, this is not something that you want to have to water a lot because it can muddy it up. However, because there's a constant flow in each little cup, you don't have to worry about those plants getting a bunch of excessive water buildup. The same thing is with the others. I have some on the front that are in a piece of cork. This cork has different holes just naturally there and cracks and different things. It's not very airtight or watertight, so when I water it, the exact same thing happens. The water just goes into the plants, it goes into the water, it waters the plants. I pour water on the plant. The water then goes through and just leaks through the cork as it needs to when there is too much, and then it goes down to that second layer of soil. Or, well, it's really a first layer of soil. It's the only layer of soil, but I filled that piece of cork up with more of the same so that the plants can survive. Something else I did, I can pull it out to show you, is I literally planted a little plastic pot directly into the substrate. This is basically the same thing again. The little pot has holes in the bottom, so when that's put there, I can just directly water the pot, but instead of it just building up and that being the end right there, instead of it being a piece of glass right at the bottom of the pot, there's another like 2 to 4 inches of substrate maybe for the water to continue to go down there, evaporate, do its thing, and not drown my plant. So again, I am still pretty new at this, but that's what I did in that vivarium. Another technique, I've actually seen it, I haven't tried it, but if you're interested, I can try it on a video, is you can even create your own false bottom for each individual plant. This may or may not be more or less efficient depending on just how many plants you have and what kind of setup it's for. I also avoided a false bottom for the ball python because it would be more difficult to heat it from the bottom. I could heat it from the side, but I don't know why I didn't. But regardless, there is a process you can use to essentially make each little plant its own drainage, whether it's taking a pot, putting gravel in the bottom of the pot and then the soil with a layer beneath so that the soil stays separated, and then watering that. One process that I've seen online is you take a 2-liter bottle, cut it, and then put the gravel in there, and then place the bottle, like plant the bottle with the plant in it. So again, it's just like little micro tiny drainage areas. So this technically is not without a false bottom, but you get the idea. But essentially all the processes I just named do involve giving your plants drainage, because I did in the past make a couple of vivariums where I did not do that, and they did not last very long. There could have been other things because I was still learning a lot about plants then. I wouldn't be surprised if there were other variations that killed the plants because I really did not know what I was doing. But I am sure that they would have lasted at least a lot longer if I did add the proper drainage, because I don't know why I didn't think of it. It makes sense to think of it, seeing as like soil is deeper than 3 inches outside. So I don't know what I expected. But that's that. So please make sure to leave any other tips that you know of in the comments of this video to help me and others out. I'm sorry, my phone keeps going off. I forgot to mute it. Also, happy 2018, I guess. Is this my first video of the year? Maybe. I accidentally deleted this video and I had to remake it. But that's okay. Hopefully it came out even a bit better. But that'll be it for this video. So I'm Alex, and thanks for watching.